This is Mrs. Dingley with Freddie. She's been worried for a while because Freddie's health seems to have deteriorated recently. It's almost as if the poor thing is getting thinner. But his appetite is still good. Why is he thirsty all day? He keeps drinking all the time and weeing a lot. I have to take him out at least 5 times a day.
Hello, Mr. Dingley. Now, this is Freddie.
That's right.
Now, I understand from what you tell me, he's been drinking a lot more,
Yes.
urinating a lot more,
Yes.
and losing some weight, in spite of eating rather well. And we discussed whether this might be diabetes. Now, I can see that he has lost some weight. His coat is looking a little duller than it used to be, and one of the effects of diabetes can be to cause cataracts and loss of sight, along with other problems. Today I feel we should examine a blood and a urine sample, which should establish whether he has diabetes or not.
Food that people or animals eat is broken down in the stomach first and then digested in the small intestine, where it's absorbed to be used in the body. One of the substances absorbed is glucose, a kind of sugar. Glucose is an important source of energy for the body and enters the muscle and organ cells via the blood. Most cells only absorb glucose with the use of a hormone, insulin. Insulin is produced in the pancreas. When the pancreas produces an insufficient amount of insulin, the cells do not receive enough glucose, and too much glucose remains in the blood. In that case, the kidneys get too high a dose of glucose. They cannot retain the glucose and exude it to the urine. As a result, the animal has to urinate more, which in turn makes it thirstier, so it'll drink more. Because glucose is lost, the body cells do not receive enough fuel, that is, not enough energy, and as a result, the animal starts to eat more. This does not solve the problem, so the animal still loses weight, and its condition will continue to deteriorate. Basically, therefore, diabetes is caused by a lack of insulin. Thankfully, we have a treatment for this. We can administer an insulin preparation.
Now, of course, these symptoms could result from many other diseases, and we need to test the urine sample, so if I could carry that out.
Yes.
Now, this is a simple test. All we need to do is to examine for the presence of glucose in the urine, and this is done by a dipstick test which changes colour. If it is positive, then we will need to analyse a blood sample to confirm the diagnosis. Now, because we've found traces of glucose in his urine, we're going to be taking a blood sample to establish the diagnosis of diabetes. So if you would like to just sit him down there, hold his chin up across, just steady him there for me. We're going to take a simple little sample from that now.
Good boy. Yes, you good boy.
Right, that's lovely. I just need to place this into the anticoagulant tube to stop it clotting, from where we can analyse the glucose levels.
Yes.
We just mix that. And this sample of fresh blood we're going to analyse straight away for glucose levels. And as you can see, that's very high at 23.7 millimoles per litre, which is a high glucose level, indicating diabetes.
Yes. Yeah.
Now, to treat this condition, we need to give insulin injections. We're going to be using a product called Caninsulin, which is specially prepared and developed for the use in dogs. It needs to be given daily, and it's important that he's injected at the same time each day. And this may seem a worrying and difficult thing for you to do, but I'm going to show you exactly how it is done and hopefully reassure you that it's actually quite an easy thing to do. First thing you do is to take the insulin bottle, which is kept in the fridge. And when you've taken it out of the box, it needs to be gently mixed.
Yes.
Not shaken, but just to mix it up gently.
Yeah.
By turning the bottle upside down and removing the needle guard, this very fine needle is placed into the bottle. You then withdraw the insulin into the syringe, past the point at which we're going to treat him.
Yeah.
It's important there should be no air bubbles left, and it's gently flick the syringe, the air bubbles come up to the surface, and you inject those back into the bottle. You then push gently the plunger, to reach the level that we're going to be using. Right. We're going to inject him subcutaneously, which means under the skin, not into the muscle. And because it's a very fine needle, he'll hardly feel it. If he's at all anxious and is upset by this, it's good to inject him at the time of actually having his meal.
Yes.
What you do is take a little piece of skin and tint it upwards, just to produce a small fold. In this region here, you inject him at an angle into and fully up to the skin there. You release the skin and then slowly inject the plunger under the skin and withdraw. And see how easy that is.
Yes.
It's good to inject him at the time of actually having his meal. If the dog is off food or vomiting, then is it important that you try feeding again about half an hour later. If you inject insulin and the dog has not eaten, this can have serious consequences. This causes low blood glucose and ultimately can lead to a loss of consciousness. You should consult your vet if this happens. Once you've completed the injection, you should replace the bottle back in the refrigerator. This is important. It should be replaced upright and not on its side.
The amount of Caninsulin that needs to be administered to your dog must be established carefully, because the required dose is different for each animal. First, your vet will determine the number of insulin units that your dog should receive, in theory, on the basis of its weight. You will administer the starting dose to your dog for a specified period. Your vet will then examine how your dog reacts to this dose. During this checkup, the vet will measure the glucose level in the blood. The starting dose will then be adjusted on the basis of the results of this examination. This will be the temporary daily dose of insulin. You will administer this dose to your dog for a few days, after which your vet will reassess your dog's response to this new dose. These tests must be repeated until the exact dose has been established for your dog. Usually, this does not take more than 2 to 3 weeks. Sometimes it may be necessary to leave the dog in an animal hospital for 24 hours. This allows your vet to take blood samples every 2 hours to determine the glucose level. In this way, it's possible to get a clear picture of the blood sugar level over the course of a day. Once the dose has been established, you can check the exact sugar level regularly at home, because the need for insulin may change over time. The easiest way to do this is to collect some urine in a suitable container. At home, you can then establish the glucose level with the discoloring urine sticks. Do this 3 times a day, in the morning and in the afternoon before feeding, and at night just before bedtime. It is, of course, important that the results are recorded carefully so you can present them to your vet. You can record them on a special card that is supplied with a Caninsulin brochure. Examining the urine is useful, but is not enough on its own. It is essential that the blood sugar level is regularly and carefully examined by your vet. Your vet can take blood samples himself, but often it's much more convenient for the owners themselves to take the blood sample. For this, a small hypodermic needle is used. Your vet will show you how to do this and how to measure the glucose level with test strips. Usually, the blood sample must be taken once a day, approximately 1 hour before the second meal.
Once your dog is stabilised on Caninsulin, he should lose all his thirst, become a much happier dog and ultimately live a totally normal life. It is important that we check his urine and blood for glucose levels, because this alters the daily dose of insulin required. It's important we stick to a strict routine of feeding and exercise. It's important we stick to the same quantity as of food and the same composition of food.
Yes.
Exercise as well. We stick to a normal, regular routine of exercise. If the dog receives effectively too much insulin or over-exercises, he may develop what's termed a hypoglycemic episode. He might become trembly, a little bit off balance, and this can lead even on to unconsciousness. If this happens, you should have some glucose or dextrose powder on hand and make a solution by drawing it into the syringe, and then he can have this dosed directly.
Yes.
Another technique would be to actually put some glucose powder into your fingers and then rub this onto the inside of his lip.
Oh, yeah.
And this can then be absorbed quickly into the body. In conclusion, we can see that treatment with Caninsulin will lead to the dog having a normal, happy life.